Hi, this is Magnus Morano, and this is my Anthropology final for the Manifesto. I really did just stumble upon this class because it was a requirement for me. And I honestly didn't have very much time with everything going on in my life between working a full-time job and going to college full-time. This semester became very difficult for me, and I wasn't the best student, and I didn't get all my work done, and that's definitely on me, but I did pay attention in this class. And it has brought a lifetime of memories to me, and it has helped me learn about things that I never would have thought affected my life as much as it really does. There's a lot of things that we covered and I didn't realize until we were going through the information and that it really was a bigger part of my life than I could have ever expected. In the first few weeks we went through class, it was mostly introduction to the course and what anthropology is. And I didn't really foresee myself enjoying the class until we got into about week 5, where we entered the subject of human potential. And we explored the ideas that humans evolved from our primal selves into intelligent beings, and we really changed a lot as our actions and our physical looks did too. And this relates to modern technology because as we grew and we evolved, our brains got bigger and our faces got smaller, and that's where the physical aspect comes into it. Technology really started to skyrocket from there, and it doesn't seem like a long time when you're talking about it now, but over the course of millions of years, we got smarter and smarter, and our brains got bigger and bigger, and it really took off. Our technology has gone drastically up in the past 1,000 years as compared to the past 900,000 before that. But even then, all of that really sparked all of what we have now. And then we merged into the next week hidden assumptions. We traverse the idea of the meaning of the words and language that words mean to us and how they can shape our lives. Words can really shape our lives in very many different ways. And when we were learning about this, we saw a video, and this guy was doing a TED talk, and he said a couple of words in a couple of different languages, and they all had the same meaning behind it, and it looked like everybody in the crowd, when he explained to them what the meaning of the words were, agreed. And he was like, well, I'm glad you agree because I made them up. And then he goes on to explain how he was writing a new dictionary of new words that explain things that we didn't have words to explain before. And to me, that's a very interesting idea because the English language is a very complex language, and we have lots of words that have lots of different meanings, and we also have a lot of words that have the same meaning, but it all depends on how you use them. And in America, from the West Coast to the East Coast, language is very different, and it can definitely shape how you live because of the words you use on a day-to-day basis when you interact with people, or when you're at work and you use acronyms for things. It really does put into perspective how different we are from one another, especially like America. We use the English language, and we don't have another language might have have a word to describe something, but in our language we might not have the same word to describe that thing. And that's a very interesting thing to me. And he goes on to explain that in the TED Talk, and it really opened my eyes to the thought of language and words, and how different we are from one another just by the way we speak. After that, my favorite thing we did was infrastructure technology and the Neolithic Revolution, and I really enjoyed that because that's been one of my favorite subjects for a long time. I really enjoyed talking about the evolution of tools and that humans made in the early years of the expansion of our brain, in comparison to how we changed the tools and our actions throughout time. So the Neolithic Revolution was the first known expansion of our brain, when humans started to move out through the world and really start using our brain more than our primal instincts. And that's also when the first tools made by humans were found, like the hand axe. And the first rendition of the hand axe that modern scientists have found is very large, like a handful, and it was like a the Swiss Army knife of a million years ago. And they used it to hunt, they used it to carve wood, they used that for everything. And you can see over the course of a couple 100,000 years, as humans got smarter and we evolved more, the hand axe got smaller and smaller until it was almost the same size as an arrowhead that we saw commonly from Native Americans. And that relates to us now, because a lot of what humans use and have nowadays aren't very big, like cell phones and like we just, speakers. We don't have very big speakers. Everything we have nowadays is real small and to go. And it surprises me how much that hasn't changed since hundreds of thousands of years ago. And it really goes to show that humans were a lot smarter than we thought back then, and they were figuring out how to get things easier to carry instead of lugging that around. And they started to work together like we do nowadays. They started to work together to hunt bigger prey and help them stay alive longer. And I loved reading about that and learning about that. That was one of my favorite subjects that we went through throughout the semester. And then this is where, like I was saying earlier, this affects my life a lot more than I ever really thought it did going into this course. We talked about poverty inequalities, and we really dug into the tragedy of our time and how poverty is more than just your income. And poverty is more than just your income. When we learned this, we watched videos, and there was a black lady, and she explained to us how she went through a neighborhood, and there was a mother, and she was having a hard time connecting with her daughter, and she felt like they were splitting apart from each other, and her daughter was starting to do things that she didn't exactly approve of, and she didn't have anybody to talk to about it. So then all of her feelings built up inside of her, and that really hit home for me, because I'm definitely not a super sensitive guy, but there are things that bother me that I really don't feel like I have someone to talk to about. More or less, I don't need to talk to somebody about it. But I, when we watched that video and I read about read about her poverty of not having anybody to talk to about it and get a second opinion on things, I didn't realize how much that actually was happening around me, and how much it actually affects you and everybody around you. And then we move into race and ethnicity. And this was another thing that I didn't really expect to be a huge part of my life, because I grew up in small town USA, the Lewis Clark Valley, and I mean, yes, we do have more than white, black, Asian, all that, Hispanic, all of that, but there's definitely not a lot of diversity here. And the big point of this lesson is that we learn that no matter what, we don't know what it's like to be someone else of a different race or gender. So we should try to see the big picture before we decide how to act to somebody. And me living here and not having to worry about that a whole lot, it really made me think about what actually goes on around me in the bigger world. Because, it's a pretty small community here, not a lot goes on. But everywhere else, Seattle or Spokane or Portland, all of that, Boise, there's a lot more diversity there, and many different walks of life. And we see about this on the news and hear about it on the radio, of all the racial inequality going on right now. And it made me open my eyes. I didn't really expect to. It made me realize how much there's actually going on in the world, and people are deciding to act like they know somebody because of a stereotype. And I can see how offensive that is, and how much that can actually hurt, and it can change how we act towards each other, and create violence and chaos. And I hope, that things don't end up being that way, but it's really big. I just didn't pay attention like I should have. And going through this chapter, it was really an eye-opener, and I really enjoyed being able to think about that, brainstorm that, and being able to realize what's actually going on felt good to me, because I got to see the holistic aspect of everything going on in the world. And with that all being said, our world's a big place, and a lot of changes happen in a very short period of time. In the last 10,000 years, humans have evolved to what we are now, and we're in the most peaceful times we've had in a long time. Other than, I guess America is in kind of a situation right now, especially with COVID, but we're a big place, and we've evolved, and we've gotten smarter. And it's just, with all that being said, it's definitely a world that I'm proud to be in. And I liked going through this class. It really taught me how to love people more, and to really show that I can understand what's going on. And I'm glad that I'll be able to take that with me forever, and to really show an unbiased standpoint to everybody, and to be to not be ethnocentric and to just be able to accept people for who they are. And I think that's the biggest take home I got from this class. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate your time, Mrs. Allison. Thank you.